This is the full director's breakdown of how I made a music video for a song from an Oscar-nominated film. If you've ever wanted to direct a music video, I'm breaking down exactly how we did it, from pre-production to post, so keep watching. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, I want to preface this by saying I was 19 years old in pre-production, and I turned 20, I think 2 weeks before production. So by all means, this is not a how-to guide. I want to show you how we did this, what I would change, etc. What I'm going to share is exactly how we pulled this off. The good, the messy, everything in between, and what I would do differently now. My producer put together some detailed spreadsheets, and we might look at a few of them, but I want to keep this fairly simple. I know this is a director's breakdown, but I was also a part of production and money stuff, so I want to be as transparent as I can be. Part 1, the concept. So let's get into the treatment. I want to take a look at the treatment that got donors to donate and how I got Jacob, my producer, on board. Also, how we got Damien Jurado on board, because this isn't something that he wanted to bring up. I mean, this song came out, I think, 10 years ago. I heard it in the holdovers and I wanted to make a music video for it, and I wanted him on board. So we're gonna go through the treatment and then we'll go from there. Silverjoy by Damien Jurado. Oh shoot, let's slow down. So, an introduction. So Silverjoy by Damien Jurado is a song that, while not explicitly stated by the artist himself, to me is about pain, heartbreak, and the yearning for not only the peace and happiness that one once had, but also the grief of losing said peace and happiness. So this music video is the opportunity to show that universal experience, grab the audience's attention through the emotion of the song, its lyrics, and the visuals that we'll be putting against it, and tell a story. So how are we going to do it? So I knew, and you guys can pause and read this if you want to, but I'm going to try to sum it up because this video I know is already going to be super long. I don't want to make it any longer by reading this whole thing. I knew that I wanted to start with a narrative sequence. I am a huge fan of narrative music videos. I like music videos that tell a story, that aren't performance based. They're putting a story to the lyrics, and I especially love when there's narrative sequences within a music video. So there's actually dialogue, there's sound design, there's stuff going on. That's the kind of music videos that I want to create. So I knew that I wanted to start with a narrative sequence. I just didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I know I wanted it to show his day-to-day tasks, whether that was with her or without her, but I wanted to show what he's going through without this girl in his life, and just kind of the mundane of life. I also knew that everything that is being said in the song, I wanted to see. So whatever Damien is singing, I wanted to match the performance to that. So he lies down, that matches with the lyrics. I thought he was gonna look at a photo, but I ended up just going with a sticky note. I also thought that I really didn't want to, and you could argue that I kind of failed at this, but I really didn't want to make it seem as though his ex passed away. So actually, in the first cut of this music video, we didn't have the sticky note insert in it. So when I had a couple friends of mine watch the final cut, they were like, I said this concern of like, does it look like she died? Because I really didn't want that. And they were like, yeah, it does look that way. And in some capacity, I wanted it to feel like that kind of grief of you spent every waking moment with this person and then they leave and it feels like grief, the same way grief would. You miss them, you think about them all the time. So I wanted in some way for it to feel like that, but I didn't want people to come to that conclusion. So hopefully I didn't fail at that. So daylight's shaking through the trees, they're playing around. I know I wanted them to be running around in something, but I needed to give them something to do, some sort of something for their performance, so it also feels very authentic. And we'll get into what I told them on set. I have a full breakdown of any action verbs that I wanted to give them, so that way they're in that mindset and they don't feel awkward or like they don't know what to do besides running around. You know, you need to give them some sort of objective. I break down the entire story in the treatment. The camera tracks, also, if you notice this shot right here, I'm like pointing it to it, like you can see what I'm pointing at. So this shot right here, we basically have that. in the final product. So you see the camera trucks, but Henry stays put. We did that. And we slide into the present where Henry is now sitting up profile. I really wanted to match that. This shot is something that I am so, so proud that we got. And also it really, really came down to location. You want to make sure that anything that you're planning, whatever, if you're writing a script, if you're making a music video, you don't want to plan out everything and then try to find a location that matches it. That's something that I've learned just from other people's experiences, and I applied it to this. I knew that I wanted him to stand up, walk to the door, and shut it to match the lyrics of "Let me be," like leave me alone, essentially. But the location that we had, I could see it perfectly. The hallway, everything was perfect, everything that I wanted. But where we shot the actual final product, that bedroom is actually a dining room. So the door that he closes, we put in. That door wasn't already there. And I think I have some BTS. Maybe I can put some while I'm talking about it. But we had to drill holes, and shout out to Adam. He was our gaffer. He also let us use his home. And it was his home that I initially had thought of when I was thinking of this concept. But he let us do all those things. He let us put in a door. And genuinely, I don't think we would have. I thought about curtains. I thought about all these things. But I wanted it to be a door. And so I'm really glad that we were able to do that. It took a minute. It took a fat minute to get that door in there. But we got it in there. I initially wanted that to be all practical, all the lights changing. I wanted it to go from moonlight to sunset practically, but we just didn't have the resources to do that. And I also am very happy with how it turned out. It was a match cut, but we were also able to change the set and add like little curtains and pieces of lace and a fan. And so I think it worked out. We're at the beach. I wanted, and you guys can pause this and read this whole thing. Do what you want. But I knew, like my mic's in the way, so I'm like moving around. But I knew that I wanted a moment between them on the beach. We see her be this very fun person that's bringing him outside of his shell. You can really see the contrast between him in the present versus him in the past. He's a much happier, he's moving around. She's taking him to all these places, dragging him everywhere. If you've noticed, she drags him like everywhere. She's a very energetic kind of person, and he's not. And you can see him kind of fall back into that in the present. But I really wanted to show that contrast, but also to show the contrast of, I guess, true nuances of their relationship and how they aren't just having fun. There's a sincere moment that's happening at the beach where they're sitting there. It's emotional and it's deep, and we actually see her kind of relaxed and looking to him for that comfort. Now, unfortunately, we weren't able to get any of her coverage in that scene. We did shoot some, but it's a 3-minute music video if you don't include the beginning scene. It was tough. We got a lot of beautiful, beautiful stuff, but we weren't able to put it all in there. So that was kind of sucky, but I really wanted to see that contrast. And then he would close his eyes in the past, and when the song says, I think it says, "Wake me," something, and he wakes up. So, it really matches. And I really wanted, when eternity begins, for her to fade away, because that kind of is implying that, they broke up. She's not coming back. This is now my eternity without her. So this is the look and feel. I really wanted the contrast, the blue of the present, the sadness of the present, to the really warm, bright, milky lens flares of the past, just to really drive home that memory kind of feeling. So I put like some people in here. I don't know a lot of these people. I just kind of found them kind of casting that I had imagined. Now, guess who this is? She's actually in the video. Location, I really didn't want for the car to also, I was really aiming to get some, like, can you see my cursor? Okay, good. I was really aiming to see some tall fields that they run through so we could have a really long lens and get this kind of look. We weren't able to do that, unfortunately, or find something, because also we were shooting in November, so it wasn't summer. That was also really tough. So you definitely want to make sure, as far as location and what your story is, that the time of year also is kind of matching. You know, obviously there's lots of times where you're shooting something that's set in the summer but it's winter and your cast is freezing, everybody's freezing. That happens. But if you can, because this is something that you are putting together, if you can delay it to match whatever your story is set in to what you're actually filming, I would try to aim for that. As far as the car goes, I did not want a lot of cars have like screens now, like Apple CarPlay and stuff like that. I did not want that. And so finding the car was actually really difficult. Luckily, the BTS video, she let us use her car, and so we used her car. I'm telling you, a lot of people came through, and we'll get into that, but we had a lot of people volunteer. I'm not gonna say volunteer, but they were willing to come on and help us out for the very tiny budget. I mean, we weren't able to pay everybody. We weren't able to do a lot of things. Like, for example, as far as our equipment goes and who we had, like our entire camera package and whatever it may be, we had our executive producer, Victoria, but Fireside Films provide that stuff for us. So this is not always going to be the case for everybody. That's why I strongly recommend meeting people, building connections, building a network. And so when things like this happen, you have people that you can trust and people that you can rely on that are willing to help you out. Don't just like use people, but build connections with people, because when you need them, they're going to come through. So the edit, I really wanted it to feel like a ballad, so a slow acoustic song, you know, with a strong melody. And the lyrics play heavily into the action of what we see, so the edit will accompany this. I initially wanted just a lot of crossfades because I wasn't familiar with basically what the editor did. So Dana, he did, oh my gosh, dude, he pulled through in what he did for this video. I think without him, I don't even know if you can see. Like, let's look at things like this. So let's see, this like match wasn't like such a perfect match. I mean, the editor, like, he had some, I think, keyframing going on. Like, he was doing so much to match it. And then with this was his idea. Keep me with you. This like flash. Oh my gosh, dude, so cool. That was his idea. We had it over a different shot. We had a lot of different takes that we were going through before finally deciding on whatever inserts we were doing. So it wasn't on her looking into the camera, that like flash, but I really liked it. So actually, I'm lying to you. So we had a shot, I think, where Andrew, he's the DP, was going from, I think, the water to the sky. So it had that natural flash. And Dana was like, I really like this like flash. I think it's super cool. And I was like, yeah, but I don't really like this take. I really like this of her. Can we put this in here? And he was like, yeah, let me see if I can try to replicate that. And he did. And it's so cool. So this, I knew initially I wanted to do this trucking to the left, transition into the present. I also really wanted it to match the lyrics. If you notice, it says all of my worries behind me now, something like that. And literally, they're behind him. We're gonna push and like see how we move to the left. All his worries are behind him. So he did this all on his own accord. He knew what I wanted and he exceeded my expectations. And then he added this little lens flare, which just, I mean, it adds so much. We basically have, okay, if I'm gonna give advice here, oh my gosh, I have hair. Have a strong first AD. Be surrounded by people that are better than you, and have a really good editor if you're not gonna edit this yourself. I'm sure I have way more advice, but those are the things that are coming to me now. dude. So as far as sound design goes, I guess basically what we're doing, we're going through the treatment, but I'm kind of skipping ahead in certain things. And I can just reiterate this when we get to those sections. But I knew that I wanted some sort of sound design. I think sound design, this is a music video, sure, but it would have elevated it to the next level. I knew I wanted just a little bit just to make sure any environments, like certain ambiance, that we drove that home. I wanted more sound design in the memories and in the past than I did the present. To also, I initially wanted to add like reverb and stuff like that to really make it feel like a memory. That's the treatment. Let's get into pre-production. Let's do it. So I want to start off with we're going to get into pre-production, but let's start off with money. So we got into the concept and all that stuff, and then first let me tell you how I got my producer if you're in my shoes and you want to delegate some things. You don't necessarily want to wear all the hats, which I would strongly recommend if you are able to. First, create your treatment. Make your treatment. If it's for a music video, whatever it's for, make sure everything is at least close to final. And then see who you would want to bring on. So I didn't know any producers that I thought would be willing to come on essentially for free. I started this with no money in mind. I didn't think I was going to be able to get money. So I wanted someone that was able to be flexible with that and truly believe in the vision, which I'm really grateful for Jacob, who I think truly believed in the vision and believed in me. And I think that's how we even finished this. Strongly recommend having a good producer and someone that believes in you and believes in the product, not just making money, which in this scenario. So what I did was I posted some things on social media. Social media is a game changer. I posted, on Instagram, those little notes. I posted a note, hey, any producers that would be willing to, I don't know what I said, but something like that. And he slid up and he was like, yeah, I would be so down. Do you have a treatment? And so I emailed him my treatment. And he was like, this is great. I'm down. And so we set up a meeting and then we got into all this stuff. I don't want to go into all of these folders, but I kind of want to give you a good idea. So with funding, we created team bios. So I had everyone send me a headshot, a bio, and then Jacob made a budget breakdown, basically explaining to certain donors that maybe weren't familiar with why things cost. Because film, a lot of people are going to say, let's say you made something that was $20,000. You made a short film that was $20,000. People are $20,000. You spent $20,000 on a short film. Use your iPhone. People don't understand how much things cost in the film world. Paying people, how many days, how much money you can spend per day. I mean, there's a lot. And so he made a breakdown / explanation going into every department, whether that was casting, not casting, but crew, gear, locations, crafty lunch, all that stuff. Broke it down so people would understand. And then he made this spreadsheet, which I think I can show you the totals. So these are our totals. I want to be completely transparent with you guys. We had only this much for talent. We had this much for locations, which means permits and stuff like that. This is how much we had over 2 days, crafty and lunch. Art department, which I will be very honest about art department. Art department did go over budget, but we were able to return things. And so we brought it back down under budget. Rentals. Now, this is unheard of, this number. Like I said, I had an executive producer that was able to provide our camera package and I think our G&E package as well. So this was extra things that we needed, like the final shot in the music video. And wake me when we used a jib shot there. So where was I? We used a jib shot. We had to rent that. And luckily, like I said, I'm going to drive this point home. Having connections, having network, everybody says it, but it's true. When you have people that you can trust, connections, network, people that you can reach out to, not only to come on, but to be willing, you're not going to expect people to always either come on for free or give things for free, especially if you don't have insurance. So have insurance, and we'll get into that. So Misk, actually, let me show you. So I'm lying. This was actually like $916. So insurance was about $916 for general liability and to cover equipment. That's a lot of money. So keep that in mind. You can't expect people to give you things for free all the time. This was my first production. First thing directing with a crew, people were more willing to help me out, and I also had developed connections with my crew, and some of my crew had better connections with certain vendors, so they were able to give us like a bit of a cheaper price. And I'm not saying you can't make anything without having money. You absolutely can, but at least have money for food and insurance. At the very least, if you're going to have money for that. So like I said, normally you want to have a budget before you start finding cast and crew, but because I knew people that I thought would be willing to help me out, I found crew initially, not cast. Cast was separate, but crew, I was able to find certain people that would be willing to come on, and we still put together a budget of what we imagined we'd be able to get, how much we would pay these people, how much, whatever. When you're seeking funding from donors, from family, from friends, from whatever, you want to have a budget breakdown and explaining why this cost this much and whatever. But as far as crew goes, assembling the team, I think was fairly easy. But we'll get into any like problems that came up during production. We'll get there when we get there, okay? Casting was tough. It's hard when you have a lot of options to choose what you think works best. So initially, what I think I had was fairly surface level as far as story. But I was able to go into more depth of character and character traits and whatever, and their dynamic as a couple because of who I casted. So casting, huge. And I went with my gut, and I'm so glad I did, because locations, as far as locations went, I was really able to rely on the associate producer, Rafa. Oh my gosh, dude. Like, he came through. He was the one that was doing these searches, finding what would work. He created these Google documents for each location and different ideas, different addresses that could work. And then we would just choose. But he was the one that was like searching, essentially. I knew what house we were going to do. I already knew what house I wanted. But permits, all that stuff, you want to have producers, because if you're directing and producing at the same time, it's just too much, man. I mean, that's just tough. It's really hard to balance both of those things. As far as crew went, so I initially had a different DP on this production, actually. I had a different DP that I knew wanted to DP more. They kind of were more of a photographer. That was kind of their thing, and I knew they wanted to be a DP. They've DP'd certain things, but I knew that was like their end goal. So I felt I had a bit more. I felt I was able to reach out to them, because we'd essentially be kind of helping each other in a way. So he was on board, but it ended up just not working out. Schedules didn't align. Communication was a little tough. He was very busy, so I had to find somebody else. And Andrew, we were already friends, but I guess in my head, I respected him so much that I didn't imagine being able to get him on this. But when I told him, everything that happened with the DP that initially was on this, would you be willing to come on? He was like, yeah, dude, absolutely. And I mean, if you've seen this video, I mean, he carried. Like, he's so good at his job. If you need a DP, hire him. Now I want to get into the creative vision and style. This is the mood board that the colorist created. So he also created a Shola for the DP to be able to put into like my monitor and the monitors that were on set. But this is like essentially what he did. Now these were photos that I had. I think maybe he added a couple of these. I'm not sure. But he broke it down in colorist vocabulary, and you can pause this and save that. But that was the mood board. You also saw it in the treatment, and I think we stuck pretty close to it. This is the storyboard. So actually we're going to get into, I'm going to get rid of myself here. So these shots, as you can see if you watch the video, were all cut. I initially wanted the video to start here. So he would step foot inside and the first note of the song would begin. And then we would see all the inserts. So the first note, then inserts of a photo, the house key. I wanted it to, be like she left the key to the house and all these things. But we were really, really running low on time. And we'll get into that when we get into the production section. But this is initially what I wanted. I knew that I wanted this. I knew that I wanted to go back here. This is the final cut of that. All these like extra shots, if you've seen the video, you know damn well, they weren't in it. And it wasn't because we didn't have time in the video itself. We didn't have time on set to get this. So I had to decide what was important, which to me was this. I needed to at least have my master and see everything. And then I had to cut all of this. I know I wanted this. I know I wanted this. I was not getting rid of my transitions no matter how long they were taking. I was not getting rid of them. And I'm glad I put my foot down about that. This also, we're going to get into production, but this was also super tough getting setups for the cool. So I could argue that I think we all can say that there's certain cool things about this video, and it's the transitions. And those were the ones that took the absolute longest on set. But yeah, and then this is the past storyboard. We got a lot. And this was actually because of the music video itself. We didn't have much time to squeeze everything in, but we did get everything that we needed. I really wanted this shot where she's looking into the camera and then she runs away out of focus. But we kind of did that in the beach scene that we looked at into focus. So I was pretty happy. I wanted to get some seagulls. Dude, we got some really cool shots, and it was so sad to have to cut a lot out because of the timing of the music video, and it wouldn't have flowed if we tried to fit everything in. But we had this really cool shot. Actually, let's see if I can pull it up. I forget that I'm screen recording. I'm gonna show y'all. Never mind, guys. I can't show y'all. I have literally every single port in my computer being used, so I can't show y'all. But maybe I can in post. So if I can, I'm gonna put it here. This shot, we had a really, really cool shot of some seagulls that were like, I don't want to say attacking Tati, but they were surrounding her because she had seashells, which is also a prop that I really wanted to utilize in the project, but we didn't end up being able to utilize it. It was really cool, and I think I said on set, I was like, I want this in the video. This is so cool. What happens? Like, this is crazy. We need this in the video. Obviously, didn't end up in the video, but I thought it was really cool. All the seagulls were around her, so I'm actually really glad that I'm able to put it in this video. But yeah, it was pretty insane. I thought it was like, oh my gosh, this is so dreamy. But anyway, so we have the beach, and then we have them sitting together. I think this is exactly what this looks like. This is the shot. This is the storyboard. We did get this stuff, just didn't end up in post in the final product. And then LOL, we got all of this. We got all of this, and I'm gonna show the stuff that didn't end up making it, but we did end up getting these things, and they ended up in the final product. And you can watch the video. Look at that. So this is the AV script. So I took the sound of the lyrics and what I wanted to see with it. So this was also included in the drive when I sent it to the editor. But, this was going to be sync audio. He enters the bedroom, goes to his bed, sync, it's all basically broken down. So you want to have an AV script, audio-visual script, if you're going to be doing a music video, a narrative music video where you want things to align with the song. You want to have an AV script. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but I wanted them to have matching bracelets, and he still hasn't taken them off. So if you notice here, they have matching bracelets, and he still has it in the beginning here.
Hey, Mom.
Hold up.
I'm bringing the pumpkin. Okay? No, I don't have an attitude. It's just that
There it is. So there's a lot more that went into this video than you might think. So I have my own folder. This is what I used on set. So we're getting into part 4, production. These are things that I definitely want. If you are a director yourself, I would screenshot this. Here, let me get rid of myself. Okay, now we're gonna go to this. You can screenshot that. I actually didn't visit that, but I did have a blocking and story overview. So when I was on set and if I got really stressed out, I knew what I needed to look at if for whatever reason I was blanking in the moment. And also, you're looking at things, you're able to, because you're shooting out of order more often than not. So you want to have what your story is in front of you. So you know, okay, in this moment, this is happening. This is what happened before. Because also your actors need to be able to trust you that you know the story like the back of your hand. And they're going to ask you, what was I doing before this? What was I doing before this? Whatever. You want to have those answers. Even if you have to pull it up like on your iPad or something. I had also exercises and prompts. I wanted to have prompts for them to get them into character or to feel the deep emotions that they needed to feel. For example, Jack in the present, I wanted to make sure that he was in that zone. Especially on day 2. Day 2 is when we shot all the bedroom stuff. That day was tough. Like I showed you in the storyboard, I had to cut a lot of that stuff. It was because we were running low on time. So you want to make sure you're able to get your actors into that zone despite everything that's going on around them. I was very big on, I didn't want people to, when they're on set and getting ready to perform, it was very big for me for people to be as professional around them and to try not to joke with them or joke around them. That was huge for me. Also, at the beach, when we're at this scene here, this is a very emotional scene. And, you know, this is a music video, and I think this can get really overlooked performance-wise for music videos. You have a short film, you're able to really digest certain storylines, subtext, what the character is going through, whatever. We had to come up with a story for this. I had to give the actors subtext, something to lean on, something to motivate them so they could perform to the best of their ability, which I think they did. You know, I think when you finish watching this music video, you really feel it, and that was my goal. So I wrote this little dialogue in the beginning for him, and I told him what that subtext was and what he wasn't saying. When we're at the beach, I had to get them in the zone. Like, there are things that you don't see, and maybe I can find some BTS that show this, maybe not. But we had a generator running. That generator was so loud. And it was tough to get these guys in the zone of not only romance, but intimacy. It's not necessarily physical intimacy that you would need some sort of coordinator for, but it's still intimate. And you want to get these people, you want to get your cast in that zone. I had a little speaker and I had music that I think filled the vibe or matched the vibe that I was trying to go off of. Something romantic, something slow, to where they could essentially relax. And I kept them away from crew. I made sure, especially when we were setting up, I had them on a towel together, just talking to each other. And when I spoke to them, I would sit behind them, kind of give them any prompts, anything to get them in the zone. I also had music going, like I said, and I would speak to them in a very soft tone to get them there so they could relax. Because if I'm stressed out, if I'm clearly communicating to the crew, communicating to Andrew, the DP, I can't, you have to find that balance of how you're going to communicate with cast and how you're going to communicate with your crew. You're going to feel the high of getting your cast in the zone. You're going to see them change, and it's insane. I'm smiling just thinking about it. I was speaking to them with music going, and I was speaking softly, and I was able to see them lock in, I guess. You see them get into character. It's insane. And then when I would walk away from them, I'm going to give you guys a moment, is what I would say. I'm going to give you guys a moment. And then I would go. And I would talk to my crew, and I'd be like, okay, guys, like, if we can just try to leave them alone, do your thing, stay professional, no jokes, please, and thank you. Okay, so that's basically what I used to be able to. I broke down every single scene, what I needed from each scene. I didn't mention this earlier, but having rehearsals, the amount of times, I want to tell you, the amount of times that somebody told me, it's just a music video. It's just a music video. No, you're telling a story. And if you're going to be the only person that's backing this story up, be the only person that's backing it up. If you need rehearsals, get rehearsals. Those were the prompts in the car. Just, in the car, I had music going. So I think you can see him like nodding his head.
There's nowhere we need to be.
So I'm in the back seat. I'm behind Tati. Behind Jack is the first AC. And then in the very trunk is Andrew with the camera, struggling. He's like sweating because I'm like making his life really hard by being like, oh, yeah, stay on this, stay on this, stay on this. And he's like, please let us cut, please. I'm like, no, sorry. But I am throwing out, and like I said, have everything that you need on a piece of paper, because I had my iPad with me and the monitor, and I was like, I want to see this, and I want to see this, and I'm throwing things out. I also had, so for production design, my production designer was actually, I think she was in like Europe or something. I have no idea. She was not on set. She wasn't in the country. She would draw things up as far as location goes. She would draw up kind of like maps of the area within the house with measurements. Like we would get measurements for her. She was on it. But she made this. No. So like I said, this was a dining room. We made it a bedroom. This is initially what it looked like. We changed curtains. We added pallets. We put a bed. Like, dude. Also, another little tip of advice. If you can have a production designer, have a production designer. Because they will carry. But basically, what I knew I wanted to see, I would put. So this location, I want to see this. This location, I want to see this. Because also I had to communicate to the team of what we needed for production design because we didn't have a production designer on set. I knew what we wanted. I knew what we were going to do because I had talked to Tess, but she wasn't on set to communicate these things. So I had to know what I wanted or know what I needed to see. Initially, this shot, I wanted this to be initially a lot closer to the door. And when we would go back, I wanted this to be full of things of their relationship, which it is there. And I don't know if you can tell, I can see on mine, but this is a dream catcher. This is like a little piece of paper that they drew on that you actually see here. Oh no, that's there. And then in here, we have the kite, we have seashells from the beach, we have like her little picnic purse, we have the picnic basket, we have down here, I think this like pink, I don't know if you can tell that actually, but in one of those is like the picnic blanket. I wanted it to be like a huge thing and we would go slower and we would see all these things, but you can't really tell. Hopefully maybe you can gather that. I'm glad that the kite is there at the very least because you saw the kite in this scene, so you recognize it. You see it there, but that was the goal for production design. So besides what I did as a director on set, I want to get into what went smooth and what didn't go smooth. Day one, I think this is when we shot the picnic and them running around. I think that was the only thing that we shot that day. Yeah. Oof. So it went smooth. Nothing crazy was going on. And then day two, I'm sorry, I'm like starving. Anyway, day two, actually maybe we can see. This is day two's call sheet. I got rid of like everybody's numbers and any information, but so we start, you didn't see that. We're at a park because we're doing the interior car stuff. So we wanted it to be at sunset. So we had to time that. This is November, so sun goes down a lot quicker than it does in the summer. We worked on this shot. As soon as we got to the house, we started working on that, setting it up, figuring out any logistics. There were points where there was miscommunications between me and Andrew, and he thought I wanted something and I actually wanted this, and we didn't have a dolly Fisher. We didn't have a Fisher dolly. So we had to make do with what we did have. We did have a super long speed rail and we were able to use that. That was a miscommunication between both of us. He didn't know that I wanted to see the floor. He thought I didn't want to see the floor. So he was planning on just using a Dana dolly, and that's not going to work. So we were figuring that out on the day. So we had to figure out how we were going to do that without a Fisher dolly, what the plan was. Luckily, like camera department and Andrew, they pulled it together. They figured it out. But that took time. And then setting up all the lights. We had to have lights in the kitchen to see the kitchen. We needed to have lights in the bedroom to have that really strong sunset. Let me just show you. And then at the same time, we're filling up. Did I show you? Like, look, it's literally a pantry. The hallway is a pantry. There's no door. So we had to set up the door. We had to make this dining room a bedroom, add all of the details. We had to put a carpet in there, pallets, the bed, the nightstands, the lamp, and set up the room to look like a room and not a dining room. And then when we're filming this scene, we had to get rid of all of this and put the stuff from the relationship that I was telling you about. So put in the stuff from the relationship. We started with this. So we had to hang curtains. We put lace here. We changed the name. We put June. We put whatever. Like, while at the same time, there's people in this room setting up the door, setting up the room. There's people, camera department, G&E. They're setting up lights. There's lighting hitting this. There's lighting hitting this. All this. We're all working at the exact same time to get this done. And then I'm talking to producer and AD like this is taking a really long time and we didn't plan this out. Then we did this second. So it was a little bit easier. I don't think lighting changed, maybe a little bit. I don't know. That's Andrew's department. This took, I think, 5 hours it was both shots, I want to say. I think setting it up took 5 hours. So like I said, this was supposed to be this, right? But we ended up literally just doing, I think, this one. And then we went to lunch. Then we came back from lunch. We were still working on it. So when we finally got to the bedroom, I had to cut all of those shots that I had told you I had to cut. This was day 2 problems. I think the only problem on day 1 was that I had a second AC. It wasn't Juan. Different second AC initially scheduled. And I think 3 hours before production, he texts me saying that he can't make it, or he got another gig or something like that. And so we had to find somebody else super last minute. We had, I think, what was the other shot that took forever? The final shot. So this shot was so close to getting cut. The jib was taking forever to set up. We had this tiny room, keep in mind. This room, we have a bed here, and then the jib shot is squeezed in this corner to make it work. And it was taking forever to work perfectly. This movement that I needed for it to go from a close-up shot to a 2 shot wasn't working. And luckily I had Jacob and Rafa helping me out. And so we had to flip the bed for it to work. So initially, what you see in this shot, this is what we had initially and what we were doing. But it just wasn't working. The jib either couldn't fit, or when we would move it up, it wasn't going from a close-up to a 2 shot, which is what I needed. So we had to flip the bed to make it work. We went over at 12 on day 2. I think we got out at 4 or 5 a.m. I didn't get home until, I think, 7 a.m. Oh my gosh, dude. Yeah, day 2 was really tough. We had a lot of really cool things that we were doing, but we just didn't schedule it out the best way that we could have. So that's also something that I would strongly recommend you do, is sit down with your department, sit down with your keys, and go into how long things are going to take. Yeah, so I already had to cut, I think, 6 shots in the bedroom, which is why we only have this master, which I didn't mind. I like long shots, but initially that wasn't the plan. And then with the jib shot, that was so close, where I had my producer and my first AD telling me okay, this is when you need to think of something else. What else can we do here? And I was like, no, this is the final shot. That's the final shot. This is such an important shot. This, to me, completes the video and completes the story I needed this. I'm not cutting anything. I'm not cutting any of the creative choices that I chose to do. I'm not cutting the transitions and I'm not cutting the jib shot. I cut other things and I cut the insert because in my eyes, the transitions and this jib shot is what makes this video flow, and it's how it tells the story in such a smooth way. I wasn't going to drop that. Subscribe to Damien. And then we get to the final shot. The final thing that we shot was the intro. So that's how production went. I think day 1 was really smooth. Day 2 was tough. We ended up getting things that we needed to get, but we had to cut a lot of things and we went over 12 hours. So not the best. So let's get into post-production. I don't have too much for this section of the video because basically what I wanted in the treatment is how I communicated things in post-production for the editor and the sound designer. As far as sound design went, a little piece of advice for future me or past me: know what you want. Don't think that you're gonna give whatever to the sound designer and they're gonna take it and run with it and accomplish something that you were thinking about that you didn't even know you were thinking about. Figure out what you want, even if it's like a rough, like, okay, I want this here and maybe we hear this. I knew that I wanted birds. I knew that I wanted the beach sounds, self-explanatory stuff, I feel. But as far as like little sound effects, like in the dialogue scene, we have dogs barking and they stop when his mom brings up his ex. And then they go back when he leaves. Door closing was something that I was having a hard time with. At first I didn't like it. I was like, no, cut it. And then it was missing something. So I was like, okay, bring it back. I want it back. He probably hated me, but there's like a little sound here.
Daylight shaking through the tree.
A whoosh kind of sound. I initially wanted her laughing to be like reverbed. When we would end up on him, it was like he was thinking about that. He was thinking about her laugh. But what we have, I think it works. But as far as pre-production goes, I think my treatment was everything I needed. Color, my colorist that year, he was on board from pre-production, which is also something that I'd strongly recommend. So he knew what I wanted. He knew what we were doing. Coloring was pretty simple, pretty easy. Editing, sound design, those took a minute because, and this is something that I'll say later, if I could go back, I would give myself a deadline for post-production, like this needs to be done by this time, because I was procrastinating. I wasn't giving a deadline for sound design and I wasn't giving a deadline for the edit, and I think the editor and it was just taking a lot longer than it should have. And I needed to communicate a deadline and be pretty firm on that, not only with the editor, but with myself. Because it got to a point where I was just procrastinating. I didn't want to see it anymore. I didn't feel creative anymore to give any opinions. I was just like, I just want this to be done. I just want it to be done. And so if you can relate to that, I feel you. But the only way that it's going to get done is if you do it. If I could go back, and I said all these throughout the video, but if I could go back, I would strongly recommend that you work with people that you trust, that you know, but at the same time, you would say that they're skilled. You, as a director, and I'm talking to directors here, you want to work with people that are better than you, because when you have an idea and you want to communicate something, they know what you're talking about, even if you're not saying it super technically. You want to work with people that know what you want when you communicate it in any type of way. You want to make sure that your team understands what you're trying to do. And I realized that when we did that long dolly shot, that maybe I didn't communicate that. So communicate with your team super well, maybe too well. Making your days is so important. So have a very strong first AD, someone that you trust, but also someone that is really good at what they do. Have a strong first AD that is going to keep you in check when you're being pissy on set. You're like, I'm not, because there are so many things when you're on set. I don't want to cut this. I'm not doing this. You start acting like a little child. You want to have a first AD that can communicate with you, can calm you down, and can tell you, look, this is the reality of things. This is what you need to do if you want to even have a project when you get out of here. Because if not, we can shoot all the things that you want to shoot, but we're not going to finish, and then you're not going to have anything. You need a first AD that's willing to tell you that. And then, like I said, go over the project. Go over everything with every key in every department to get a good idea of how long things are gonna take, and you want to be in that conversation. You want to know things. So on the day when things are taking longer than you expected, you know what initially you had planned and you're ready for that. Because when you have those conversations and the first AD is like, look, this might take a little longer, you might have to cut things. You need to be prepared for that, because production does not go smoothly. Very rarely does it go smoothly and do you get everything that you want. So be prepared for that. When you're making your shot list as a director and to discuss with your DP once you finished it, what shots are crucial that you cannot cut, and what, rate it on a scale of like 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. Decide what you think is important and what you need and what maybe you could cut. More often than not, you're going to be on set and you're going to have to cut something. And then finally, give yourself a deadline. Give yourself a deadline in post. Even when you're by yourself creating a concept, give yourself a deadline of when you want to start filming, when you want to have crew, yada, yada, yada. Create a master to-do list. Let me show you. Okay, create something. Oh my gosh, my light died. I've been talking to y'all for quite a minute. Create something that, and this was a lot more detailed. You want to find certain things, have cast locked, crew locked, location scouts, whatever it may be. Create a master to-do list, give yourself deadlines, and then have someone to enforce it. Be disciplined, get your stuff done. And if that means hiring someone else to keep you in check, then do that. Okay, guys, if you've made it to the end of this, you are very committed and you are going to go places. I truly believe in you. I'm going to be uploading a lot more. This is starting as a private link to donors, but eventually it's going to be public. So I'm going to be uploading a lot more on my YouTube. Check out the description for certain links. Check out the links below. My socials are going to be down there. And like I said, I'm going to keep uploading on here. I've got a lot more. If this breakdown helped you, comment down below what you think was the most helpful for you. I hope you were taking some notes if you wanted to take notes, and if anything stood out to you, let me know. That way I can maybe elaborate on it even more in another video. But like I said, I'm going to keep uploading. I have more things to talk about, potentially more breakdowns later down the road. And I wish you all the luck. Goodbye. Subscribe.